Hi guys, welcome to today's video. As you can see by the title, finally did it, finally pulled the trigger. We have an R3. So what we're going to do is we're going to look through the spec of the camera, then we're going to go through some photos I've already taken with the camera. I've taken some photos in bright sunshine and also in absolutely torrential rain. So we'll look through them and then I'm going to give you my initial thoughts on the camera, and is it something that I'm happy to have spent the money on and happy to now have in my hands, or is it slightly disappointing, or anything like that. So first of all, let's get into the specs and go from there. Okay, so here we are. We've got the Canon EOS R3, something I didn't think I'd be saying for a good few years, but here we are. The opportunity arose and I took it with both hands. We have the RF to EF adapter on there currently because all my lenses are EF. Main specs of the camera here is got a stacked sensor, which is 24.1 megapixels using a Digit X processor. So the same processor they've been using for a very, very long time now. Probably do an upgrade with the R1 with any luck. It's obviously got a very rugged looking body derived from the 1Ds. I'm still of the opinion that this was meant to be an R1 originally, and then Nikon brought out the Z9 and Canon were like, maybe this is not R1 capable now anymore, maybe you should call this the R3 and then develop an R1 later on. You've got nice screen on top, which I find really useful. I've been using the R6 for so long, I forgot what it was like to have a nice screen up there to sort of see what your settings are without having to look through the viewfinder itself. A lot of the controls and where everything's put is very similar to what you get on a 1D, so it's just like being at home for me. One of the main reasons I wanted to get this camera was purely for this viewfinder up here. So you've got the eye control AF, which means you can look at a subject, hit on AF on, and it will track that item, that object you're looking at. And then if you look at something else, repress that, you track it. The second thing, so that's something I really wanted to use this for, and I've done a good few photos now with it, and it's worked absolutely flawlessly. You've got a 30 frames per second on mirrorless mode. I don't know why you'd use anything but mirrorless mode in this camera with it being a stacked sensor. So I've been using 30 frames per second on here. I've just done the update, so I can now shoot that 195 frames per second high burst, but I'm not sure whenever I'd actually use that, so I haven't tested that yet, but I will try that at some point. You've got a really high max ISO on here as well of 102,400. You've got the IBIS system in here. You've got 8 stabilization points in here to keep that sensor where it should be and nice and stable, which has been really, really nice. It uses the same battery as my 1DX Mark II, so now actually ironically I've got a spare battery now, which I did actually need. From experience already, you get 5,000 photos from that battery if you use the eye tracking, but you have the screen facing down. So obviously you've got the tilt vary screen, and a lot of people obviously shoot like this. I never shoot like that. I don't like having the screen like that and using the extra battery. I'd rather have the battery for later, so I always shoot like this and then only get the screen out if I want to have a look at the imagery or even look through the viewfinder now a lot of the time. For people who want to use this for video, by all means you can do. You got your switch up here to select that. You get 6K RAW with 60 frames a second or 4K at 120 frames a second. Not a lot of things play back in 6K, so unless you need to really shoot in that, I think 4K would be more than adequate. And it's got that lovely EVF there with 5.76 million dot blackout free, which is incredible. Shooting with this at 30 frames per second, the fact it makes a noise as well when you shoot, which is one thing the R6 did not do, which used to drive me absolutely insane. It's incredible just to be able to shoot this. A pleasure to actually own this. And then finally, card slots. At the moment, I'm only using the SD cards because that's what I had from my R6. Next month, I'm going to get one of the the fast cards to go in here and start shooting redundant like I always do, because you never know what's going to happen out in that field and if you're going to lose all your photos. It is a full magnesium body as well. I shot this for 8 hours in the absolute torrential rain and had zero issues with water ingress, nothing get in there at all, and you would not even be able to tell, apart from a few sort of watermarks in the viewfinder and the EVF, you would never know that this was in the rain. So that's your overall spec of the R3, and let's look into some photos that I got with this camera over the weekend. So this image here we're going to look at now is a Slovakia in the trees, hand over mouth. Obviously not very happy to be being watched on, but eye tracking on, nicely in focus on the eyes. We got a bit of branch, which is kind of getting a bit of a blur in the front, but this is using the 200 to 400mm lens, all these photos will be. So you've got nice separation from the subject to foreground and background here in this photo. Next photo here is Jaguar walk across the waterfall. Is an image I always try and get when I go to Chester, and just to see if I can improve it at all. But as you can see, because he's walking quite parallel to me, you're shooting at f4 here. The whole side of the Jaguar is in focus. We've got, again, nice separation, nice colours as well coming through. It's a very, very bright day. It was very harsh light, so I was very happy with how this photo actually came out in the end. So the next two photos taken in very sort of harsh conditions, very raining. So I was using high ISO. This is at 16,000 ISO. This photo, eye tracking worked absolutely flawlessly. Focused straight on the eyes. He's having a bit of a peer around to see what's going on. Bit of sun catching his face. The rest of him is totally out of focus, and sort of dark as well. But the main parts are in focus. Colours are really nice again, and say shooting at that high ISO. Not a massive amount of noise included in here. And the final image here is just to show the colours more than anything else of what can come out. But you've got snow leopard here, looking like it's in the Himalayas. You got flowers, you got greenery, you've got rock. Just the transition of colours and how really nice they are. And the camera focused on the whole leopard, so the whole leopard tail, even though it's obstructed, is nicely in focus. Shame the snow leopard never looked at me, or else that'd have been an even better photo, but I'm really happy with this. So the colour's really nice. You've got some flowers in the foreground, some daisies there, and some flowers in the trees on the right as well, and it just looks like you're not in a zoo, which is the main thing I try and come out with the photos when taking photos, is to try and avoid them looking like you're in a zoo, and this is one of the better examples from that. So those are the specs and some of the imagery that I've already taken with this camera. I've already taken 5,000 images in the first week of ownership of having this camera. That's partly down because it's got 30 frames a second and I've been absolutely rinsing the fact that it's got that, but also because it gives, the way this feels in the hand, the way the tracking and autofocus works, just give you that much more confidence that the imagery you're focusing on and they're going to take the photo from is just going to be good. So you just want to capture those moments a bit more, I think, especially over the R6. Towards the end of my ownership of the R6, I was having a lot of misses with the R6, which I wouldn't have got with a DSLR. That might just be me and the circumstances I've been using it, but to start with, I wasn't having those issues when I started doing the initial reviews and stuff. I wasn't having those autofocus issues, and it seemed to get worse the longer I had it. So maybe I was getting into bad habits with it or something, but yeah, I didn't have a great success with hit rates towards the end of ownership of that camera. This camera here, the main thing that kind of appealed to me was the improved AF, and having that eye focusing system is well built into the camera. So you look at what you want to focus at, you press the button and you're focused on that. And that seems to have definitely increased the hit rate. And I've also had situations where I've been focused on one thing and I can see out the corner of my eye that something else is going on. I've looked at it, the camera's noticed I've looked over, I've pressed autofocus and it's focused directly onto that other thing, and I've got photos that I wouldn't potentially have got with the R6 very quickly, because I would have had to change the focus point to go, I actually want to take photos of that instead, because it was behind the thing in front of it. So overall, the first sort of, say, 5,000 shots I've done with this, I've been very, very impressed with the speed. It's got no issues with sort of any delays with the shutter, no bowing of anything. All the imagery is nice and sharp. It's only 24 megapixels, but as we all know, potentially the R1's only going to be 24 megapixels. So clearly Canon think that that's enough megapixels for a pro level camera. Battery and everything, so this has got the same battery that I use in my 1DX Mark II, and I got 5,067 photos off this battery and still had 10% off battery life left. And that's partly because I always shoot with the screen facing in, but you're also using an eye tracker in there, which takes a lot, and I found when you get to 15% battery life, that eye tracker stops working. So I took it down to 10%, changed the battery, took some more photos. But that's amazing battery life, in my opinion. 5,000 shutters from a battery on a mirrorless camera, absolutely incredible. I'm only shooting with one card currently, which is the SD card, which is against my rules of shooting redundant. But at the moment, I've just spent X amount of money on this. I can't afford to buy at the moment anyway this month to buy the card to go in it, so I'll get that next month. But I'm very much enjoying it. The feel of the camera over the R6 just feels so much better built. It feels actually like a proper DSLR well-built camera. And yes, I'm used to the 1DXs, which is probably where my biases come from, but even like the R6 Mark II and the R7, everything just always feels a little bit plasticky. When I've picked this up though, it actually feels well built and really nice in the hand. All the buttons are very much where you'd expect them to be. And even shooting horizontally there is really, really nice in the hand. Everything's where you would want it to be. So overall, so far, yes, it's a lot of money, but it is a lot of camera more than sort of an R6 or even an R6 Mark II. I've not had an opportunity to use the R6 Mark II massive amounts yet, but I will be using that a bit more soon to see how that compares to things like the R3 now I've got it, and I will be comparing this against the DSLRs as well and sort of looking at the build quality and everything like that. But super happy now to finally have one of these in hand that I can test, I can review, and I can just use and enjoy, and hopefully can maintain getting some nice imagery from it. So you guys let me know in the comments, have you got an R3? Are you thinking of getting an R3? Put your questions down below if you're thinking about getting one. If you've already got one, let us know what your experiences are with it, anything to look out for, any settings that we should be looking for, and I can try those out as well. So thanks for watching as always, guys. Please subscribe, comment and like, and I will catch you guys later on for more content. Thanks again. Goodbye.